Right, thank you. We're actually going to start the next session with a video as well. So if we can tee that up. And then I'll ask my panelists to get ready to get on stage.
Across the global south, the current handling of vaccines involved the use of conventional methods such as ice boxes or frozen gel packs. Ice packs melt throughout the course of the day, compromising the vaccines and making it challenging to reach far and inaccessible areas of immunization. It can even damage the freeze-sensitive vaccines. WHO data suggests that about 50% of vaccines are subjected to suboptimal temperatures before they are administered, and last-mile wastage is particularly a problem in the low and middle-income nations. As a solution to this, we at Blackfrog Technologies have spent over 5 years of rigorous R&D to develop our flagship product, mVolio. We offer a backpack-mounted solution that precisely maintains a preset temperature for over 24 hours with no power backup. Blackfrog's patented technology is energy efficient for harnessing solar power in low-resource settings and can be used as a standalone refrigerator to store vaccines, whole blood, oxytocin, and thermally sensitive serums at remote facilities. Additionally, IoT-based tracking enables health authorities to determine the effectiveness of vaccine and immunization coverages to inform value chain decisions. The product adheres to the highest medical device standards and is the first product to be pre-qualified by WHO as a battery-powered refrigerator. Blackfrog Technologies is a healthcare technology company based in Manipal, India, and we operate an ISO 13485 certified medical devices manufacturing facility. Our products are now live in over 15 states of India, with our technology demonstrating the value over conventional systems in deserts, coasts, and even mountains. With renewable energy partners such as Selco Foundation, we help deliver over 200,000 doses of vaccines in some of the most hard-to-reach areas. We are now scaling this technology to reach zero-dose children who are in critical need of vaccines, beginning with our deployment across Africa with the support of USAID. This will be the first step towards our broader vision of building a future epidemic preparedness and strengthening global health security.
Thank you. I would love to welcome to the stage Amit Kumar Rawal, who is Qualcomm Aware Platform Business Development at Qualcomm Technologies, and Mayur U Shetty, who is the Chief Executive Officer at Blackfrog Technologies. Thank you both for joining us. Yeah, you can sit here. Great. Well, we just saw a video, Mayur, and I wanted to just kick off with you. Can you talk a little bit about the technology that we just saw in this video? What inspired you to create this? And maybe talk about some of the impact you've seen since you've done so.
Sure. The inspiration behind mVolio, I think I'm going to have to go back a decade to get into the inspiration. I'm actually an automobile engineer. I spent about 4 years studying how petrol burns inside an internal combustion engine and how can I make it slightly more efficient, about 2%, 3% more efficient, so that with a liter of petrol you can go a slight bit further and a slight bit faster. Now, over the past 10 years, with the advent of electric vehicles, and electric vehicles have essentially taken over the world, also rendered my training mood, and my degree is about as useful as a floppy disk today.
So career preservation.
but it's given me some valuable insights that I've been able to take into the vaccine logistics space. Immunization is without a doubt the most significant and most important public health intervention, and I don't want to get into that because there's been a lot of conversation on the value of immunization throughout the day. But vaccine logistics, that's something that I want to speak about today. Over the last 50 years of immunization campaigns, there's been a lot of investment in vaccine cold chain. Some cutting-edge technologies in refrigerated airplanes, ice-lined refrigerators, solar-driven refrigerators, but it's the last mile. Even today, we use ice packs, ice and gel packs to carry vaccines in that last leg of the journey, which ice is very cheap. It makes sense if it's a point A to point B journey, right? If you're carrying something from a grocery shop and you want to take it back home, even if you have a pit stop in the in the fuel tank for the fuel tank, it's still fine. But immunization is a little more complex. You need something that is actively controlled, where there is accountability, there is monitoring, and there is regulation. With ice packs, you're just not able to regulate the temperature inside these carriers. That got us thinking. That got us thinking into developing an active carrier where it strictly maintains a temperature that is preset for vaccines, and health workers can take it to far and remote areas without worry that ice packs will melt through the course of the day. Am I going to administer a vaccine that has potentially lost the potency? Right. That's what we wanted to build at Blackfrog, so that every child in every hamlet of the last village gets immunized. It's about efficiency. What we learned from electric vehicles is that just because something has been doing the job for such a long time is not exactly the best way to do it. It's not the most optimal or even the cleanest way to do it. That got us thinking into developing a very radical solution to the last mile delivery of vaccines.
Well, I think you have a little show and tell right here too, so we can see the backpack right here in person. I'd love to hear, what were some of the challenges in getting this implemented at scale, whether it was financial or regulatory, just adoption. Can you talk us through some of those challenges and how you overcame them?
Sure. Yeah. So I think right off the bat, the first challenge was a physics hurdle. Making a refrigeration is not a very efficient process. To kind of miniaturize it, make it portable, make it operate in the global south. Right. That was probably the first challenge for us. I think it's very easy to administer vaccines if you live in Copenhagen or even Addis Ababa or even New Delhi for that matter, because people come to the vaccines, right? It's the real global south, the mountains of Northeast India, mountains of Manipur and Meghalaya. That's where you need to carry vaccines to remote and inaccessible areas. I think that was the first challenge, to make it durable, portable, rugged, so that, I mean, it's going to be carried in bullock carts, it's going to be carried on a camel, it's going to fall off the camel. It needs to be resistant to torrential rains. That was definitely the first challenge, and I think we overcame that with we had a clearly laid out design specifications by WHO PQS. There was a very well thought out specifications laid out. So I think that was the first step I did. The second stage is making it leveraging the wireless compatibility of a battery powered system. So if you're using a battery powered system, there's a whole lot of data that we could potentially utilize, and that's where Qualcomm Technologies came into the picture. We use Qualcomm's LTE Cat M2, the BG96 module for our wireless technology. We're able to harness every single data that we get when you go on an outreach session. Like, for example, where is the asset going? Who is getting immunized? Who is being left out? Are the vaccines safe? Is it within that temperature? Where is it being opened? Where is it being closed? All of this data we're able to now leverage, and that's going to help inform value chain decisions. So, yeah.
Well, and Amit, I'd love to hear a little bit more about how Qualcomm partnered with Blackfrog on this, and really how you go about developing innovative technologies, particularly looking at the pharmaceutical cold chain, and what led you to want to partner with Mayur and Blackfrog Technologies on this one specifically.
First of all, thanks, Kate, for asking this question, and good morning and even good afternoon to the crowd out here. Let me probably divide this question in couple of parts while sharing my response. First, we need to double click basically when we look into the pharma cold chain and the problems what all of us looking in this room or maybe outside the room. It's all about getting the medicines and the vaccines in a right shape and size. That means I'm talking about the integrity of the cold chain. Number two, it's all about unparalleled transparency in the whole value chain. That means if I'm a government official, if I'm a community, if I'm a healthcare worker, or even I want the medicine themselves, I want to have a full visibility. Third, how they are stored, how they are traveling across the value chain. And last but not the least, if any tampering, theft protection can be done proactively. These are the problems what we are talking about today. Having said that, like you asked, pharma cold chain, we as a Qualcomm leader in wireless technology, we cannot just talk about just from the tech point of view, right? It has to have some human touch, some business touch, some tech touch. That said, we have a proposition. It's called Qualcomm Aware Platform. The word itself is like making everyone in the value chain making aware. Kind of a platform we are talking about being a chipset industry, chip to cloud value proposition, cutting through complexities across the value chain as you move forward. What does that mean? I mean, so many buzzwords, cutting the value chain, technology, and so on. See, first thing is that when I was talking about the key problems at the start, um, having your connectivity right, that means that the positioning, I mean, where the vaccines are actually one. And for that, you need to have real time, uninterrupted data streams on a platform, something which you could look into all the stakeholders here in the room and the outside. Number one, locating the vaccines itself, I mean, like I talked about, being stored, so that we do with the kind of a location value proposition. Third, condition monitoring, it's very important, the pharma cold chain, in what temperature range they are they getting somehow missed the pressure parameters, they are into the humidity, light sensing, and at times, like I was talking about, shock, tilt, or getting damaged. And that we are packaging basically, like I talked about, a kind of a platform one can use. And yeah, having said that, we feel empowered and very responsible while doing this.
When you talk about the human aspect, and when you saw the video, you see community healthcare workers using this backpack and engaging directly with patients. Can you talk a little bit about the role of community healthcare workers and your experience on how this technology is enabling their work to be more efficient?
Right. Yeah. So the the fundamental priority for us was to provide a cutting edge tool for the healthcare workers. In India we call them the ASHA workers, the auxiliary nurses and the midwives who carry the vaccines. And these women are super driven by this idea of improving my community and ensuring my community is protected from these vaccine preventable diseases, right? So when we started deployment in India, we realized that a lot of our products were being seen as a means to an end, just to carry vaccines, right? It's only after time that we started conducting cold chain seminars. We started creating this awareness campaign where we showed them data logger studies. So we validated the product in about 4 states right now, in the mountains, in the deserts, in the coast, and we collected data with these wireless sensors inside the ice-based carrier and the same wireless sensors inside Emvolio when you carry the vaccines, and we could see that ice boxes would freeze the vaccines for about 4 or 5 hours before it's being administered. So there's a very high chance that we're giving vaccines today that could have potentially lost the potency, and these are being given to infants. When we showed this data to the health workers, they could really resonate with that, where their work is not really translating into impact because of a blunt tool, right? I mean, I'm sure a lot of you can empathize with how annoying it is when you use a screwdriver that just slips, the plastic part slips inside the metal shaft, right? And that's essentially what's happening. And I think a fundamental tenet of a new intervention is adoption in the ground, and for us it's with the healthcare workers who carry the vaccines. So a lot of the design for Emvolio has come from the field, where we've been able to interact with the healthcare workers, kind of understand their challenges. Like, for example, this has got a backpack, so this works really well in Ethiopia and Kenya, because there's a lot of men who carry the backpack, whereas in India women wear a sari. So when you're wearing a sari, it's very uncomfortable to wear a backpack. So we had to kind of adapt into that scenario where we could get a sling to ensure that it's not more of a liability than it already is with the ice-based carriers, right? So I think that's also the first rule of management, right? Putting the customer first. In our case, putting the end user first was always the priority for us.
And you talk about the data that you're able to collect and your platform. What are some of the other possibilities and potential you see that you could potentially build in with a device like this and leveraging all the data points you're able to collect?
See, I mean, data is the new oil, I would say, in today's world. We can't disagree that. And that too, most important is having the trustable and reliable data. What we bring here, the innovation, what we do, it has got a purposeful innovation. What does that mean? I mean that in a healthcare value chain, if you look into even the topics Mayur was highlighting, and I was hearing some other sessions, it's all about getting real-time, trustable data in a certain manner, what the stakeholders and the community is asking for. Having said that, I mean, you take it, start from, like I was highlighting, let's pick up a healthcare, I mean, a value chain and integrating it with a, let's say, pharmaceutical. Yeah. It starts from when the vaccines or the medicines started from the warehouse, getting to the last mile, traveling across the global. There are many touch points. You need to click on that and want to be get informed. So those are the couple of things what we do take care of. Like I said, trustable, reliable data driven by Qualcomm Aware.
And so we are here at WHA. I believe this is your first time to. Okay. And what are you wanting to get from the global health community? And as a tech entrepreneur, what are some of the challenges but opportunities you see in partnering with the broader global health community to be able to leverage the technologies like you're doing to enable their work?
Yeah, so I think a lot of the focus now is going towards building a climate resilient health center, right? And that's another priority for us. And through the WHA, we're now scaling our work. This is something that's validated across India. This is something that we want to bring to Africa now, and we want to partner with development agencies to kickstart this, specifically starting with Kenya and hopefully the other nations after that. We want to be part of building a system where a health center is not cut off from the rest of civilization because of natural calamities. I mean, we've seen this in India where cyclones and hurricanes just cut off all of the power lines in the power grid, and the health center has no access to power, which means refrigeration, oxygen concentrators, everything is suddenly cut off. So solar compatibility is the future, and that's also that was also a design premise for us when we built Emvolio, to make it as energy efficient as possible so that you can connect it into a portable solar panel. And that's something that we have outside. We have a stall outside. I would love to have each of you come over and look at the device and the solar panel as well. But yeah, to just wind up on the answer, I would love to speak to each of you to help us scale this technology in Africa now. I'd love to talk to you more about how we're at the forefront of ensuring immunization services are not cut down just because of a natural calamity or any even human error, which leads to cold chain transmission getting cut off, right? So that's something, yeah.
Well, in a lot of our discussions this morning, we've talked about the power of partnership and how critical that is in order to be able to scale the amount of work that really needs to be done to solve the vast global health challenges we're trying to tackle this week. So, Amit, I'd love to hear from your perspective how you think about partnership in being able to scale the reach of the technologies you create and invest in.
Absolutely, very, very interesting question, and I'm feeling myself already empowered answering this. Why? Because as you saw, Blackfrog Technologies is one of those partnership wherein we brought in our tech to empower the community and contributing to the human progress. Having said that, I mean, as you can see, Qualcomm Wireless Reach, one logo actually out there. What is this? This is a strategic, transformative initiative, I would say, which we have started a decade back. I mean, precisely somewhere 2006, and working in more than 50 plus countries, part of 130 programs, and more interestingly, impacting 27 million plus people actually. That means taking to the each aspect of the human life and contributing towards the progress of it, communities, and so on. And like I said, I mean, in one of my previous response, we taken it to the next level with the Qualcomm Aware, basically, where beyond connectivity, we brought in other key components. So yeah, that's how I would summarize.
And we are going to open up to some audience Q&A in just a minute. But Mayur, how many of these units are in circulation?
Yeah, so we have about 1,100 units live right now. We helped carry over 200,000 doses of effective vaccines to some of the most rural and remote communities in India just after COVID. Both COVID-19 and routine vaccines, considering routine vaccination kind of took a backslide because of COVID vaccines. We also help deliver other critical biologicals, like for example, oxytocin, which is necessary for childbirth, right? You have home deliveries where you need to carry oxytocin. You need to carry antivenom in a lot of places where there are snake bites, blood culture, serum, sputum, lot of biologicals that require strict temperature control round the clock. You need emergency pints of blood every time there is a trauma incident. This is kind of our focus also. I mean, to ensure that it's not just a vaccine carrier, it's a holistic refrigeration solution for all of primary healthcare requirements.
Great. Well, if there's any questions in the audience, raise your hand and we will have a mic runner come around. Yes, we have one right here. Mic is coming your way. You can stand up and introduce yourself.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate this technology advance. My name is Professor Kihara. I'm from Kenya. And I know you're working in the Samburu area. But my question is, how do you get through the regulatory framework? And then how do you sustain and scale as part of your innovative advancement?
Right. Yeah, I think that's a challenge for any startup company in the medical device space. The regulatory board, I wouldn't say burden, the regulatory affairs around medical devices. I think that's a challenge, especially in the global south, where there isn't continued sustained funding for startup companies. There's too many valleys of death. Fortunately, we've had a lot of partners who had our back. Qualcomm is definitely one of them. Apart from the exceptional chips that they make that we use, they've also been a long-time big brother for us through a lot of these valley of deaths. The regulatory affairs, I mean, considering it's a medical refrigeration, we didn't have to go through a lot of the clinical trials. We had a fairly straightforward pathway with WHO. WHO has very specific guidelines for vaccine refrigerators. But yeah, that's also been an arduous journey for us. Considering we were the first one to be pre-qualified, they were very, very strict with it. It took us about 24 to 36 months to kind of completely wrap up the process, which is not exactly nice for a private investor. They don't have that kind of patience, which is a little troubling, but I'm hoping that scenario is going to change over time.
Great. Do we have any other questions? Amit, did you want to respond to that one as well?
Yes, sure. I would dissect this question in three ways. See, you talked about regulatory, right? I mean, how we do take it responsibly. Let's take it global manufacturing practices. Yeah. What we do, like I talked about, it contributes to the purposeful innovation. When we manufacture, we take care of good manufacturing practices. Number two, I will dissect that into as a good clinical practices, that we also take care of, because so many intrusions have been happening, being at the clinical trial site or throughout the value chain. Third, in fact, I would take it like good distribution practice, which is also a very key important throughout the value chain. So we cut across all these three aspects, addressing these three aspects: GMP, GDP, and like I said, GCP.
Great. Well, if anyone has any questions, raise hands, but I've got plenty of others here. So I think you started developing this pre-COVID, that's right. And then I'm sure once COVID hit, it became even more critical. Can you talk about that experience, and did it help supercharge this to be able to get it to market quicker, be able to get adopted quicker?
Yeah, absolutely. We had our beta version rolled out slightly prior to COVID. We were transporting biologicals, critical biologicals. Again, nobody really spoke about vaccines prior to COVID-19. I mean, outside of Geneva, probably. It was very, very difficult.
And taxi drivers in Geneva.
This is very difficult space for us to talk about vaccines are getting spoiled. Vaccines are getting spoiled. Just nobody listened to us prior to COVID. During COVID, just during the when the first outbreak happened, we started deploying for transport of the samples, the nasal and throat swabs that went for testing the COVID-19 specimens, right? So a lot of private hospitals purchased from us. This is interesting because even the nasal swabs, their viral load, right? They require the same strict cold chain, and if they're not maintained in the appropriate cold chain, it could come out as a false negative. And interestingly, I contracted COVID in the mid of 2020, and I was at home, and a laboratory guy came home to collect my sample. He came in, he took the swab, he put it in a tube, and he just put it in his denim pocket, and he just walked away. There's no cold chain. Forget cold chain. There's not even a polythene bag to carry it. And I knew I was absolutely certain that this is a negative test result. So, which is a huge problem because there isn't that awareness among a lot of health practitioners. That a lot of biological samples also need to be maintained in that strict temperature, right? I think the larger break probably came through with when the COVID vaccines finally did get approved. I mean, that's when the world's focus went towards COVID vaccines. Right? When am I getting my vaccine? That's when we were able to ensure that the largest impact of the product could reach the masses, right? And we hold these pharma companies to very high standards of like how efficacious is your vaccines, what are the trials. But the true benefit of a vaccine is only realized when that child has finally received the protection against the disease. So I think we tend to overlook that last aspect of has it been delivered in the appropriate conditions, not just is it tested well enough. I think that needs to be part of the larger discussion.
Yeah, critical part of that whole system. Well, thank you to Qualcomm and Blackfrog Technologies.